everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the afternoon. Joining me, as always, it's Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat writer, Charlie O'Connor. What's going on today, Chuck?
Not too much. It's a hot one.
It is. It was
Indeed,
like
a hot
85 when I left my house today at like 10:30. I was like, I don't like this. Not ready for it. It just
It finally does feel like summer.
I want the weather to always like just be one thing. Don't be 70 and then not just be one thing. But you know, it's weather.
And it is funny that it's probably the first 90-degree day of the year, and we've got hockey.
We do. We have hockey
Hockey's
tonight. Game 4 is finally happening. I like that it's like the longest travel you can basically possibly have in the league. But it's the days in the same city or the long breaks. I find that funny.
You got to give the media a chance to party
at the beach, man.
in Edmonton.
That really feels what it's like, what it's all about. Like
this is in Florida, so this is actually a good spot. But
Yes.
got to give them a chance to party in Edmonton too.
No, yeah, they gotta hit the beach.
Right.
So we need to give everyone one day.
Yeah.
Like, so that's what it comes down to. But
Yep.
we'll finally have Game 4 tonight. Feels like it's been forever. Panthers are up 2-1 in the series, and I don't have a feel for this yet. Like I always generally, you know, we'll talk about the ball knowers bonus later on in the show, but get like a flow for the series and how it's going to go. Like, okay, I have no idea. Like, is that one game and the Oilers are able to put it behind them, or have the Panthers kind of put their stamp on this thing and taken over? But we've also seen the Panthers like have problems like once they establish actually putting things away. Like, I don't know. I have no idea what to expect out of tonight's game, and that kind of makes it way more interesting.
It does feel like this is the pivot point of the series because if Florida wins, then they've built off of their game where they looked head and shoulders better than the Oilers. They're up 3-1. All they need to do is win one more game, then it's over. If Edmonton wins, then Edmonton has 2 of the next 3 games at home. It's a tie series, and they have home ice advantage again. So it really does feel like this is the game, not necessarily the game that will decide the series, because you never know. It's hockey.
And we
Weird
saw
things
how it
happen.
went last year. Like, yes, this would give Florida a commanding 3-1 lead. Also, they were up 3-0 a year ago,
They
and it
almost
went
blew
7.
that. Yeah.
So,
But it does feel like this is the pivotal game in terms of establishing. Like, after 2 games, everybody in hockey was thinking, this is a toss-up. This would go either way. 2 amazing games, both go into overtime. Both teams could have easily won the game they lost. After game 3, the general consensus is, oh God, Florida's about to roll. If Edmonton comes back and wins this game, then suddenly, again, tie series, 2 out of the final 3 games in Edmonton, the narrative shifts completely. But if Florida finds a way to win, and even if it's significantly closer than game 3, then it's feeling like a coronation.
and just like even the Charlie numbers, as Kelly and I called it, like the XG numbers through 2 games, it was like 50.2 to 49. Like, it was as close as it could possibly get. And then game 3 is just Florida looks, yeah, man, that's them. Like, this game is out of hand. They scored a bunch of goals.
Edmonton's their cool.
Taking penalties. Like, it just, we got water bottles squirting. Brian Boucher's pissed because his suit's getting wet. Like, it was everything you expect from just a chaotic Florida game. And now it's basically, all right, can McDavid do the McDavid thing?
Right.
Or is Florida going to really take command of this thing? But we'll find out tonight. Looking forward to it. Series has been good thus far.
This does feel like one of those McDavid can define his career in part by just like scoring a hat trick.
Yes.
Like, this is one of those games where if he goes out there and just puts the team on his back and is like, yeah, we ain't losing this one in enemy territory with their backs against the wall a bit, it's one of those games that you'll remember, 15 years down the line when he's getting inducted in the Hall of Fame.
McDavid scores a minute in. Through 30 minutes, he has 3 points. Like, is it that, or does Florida kind of just carry the momentum? I do want, like, with momentum game to game, not really a thing. But with the days in between, I wonder if that makes it harder to, like, carry over. Like, not that we'd ever get a back-to-back in the final, but if they play the next day, like, I think Florida wins this thing in 5, But since they've had the time, now it's like, that was a week ago. Who cares? It was one game. We're not doing the aggregate score here. It doesn't matter if we lost by 5 or we lose in overtime. It's a game. We just go win the next one. Series is even. So I'm interested to see how this plays out.
And it was funny that Knobloch, I know this is the way it works in the playoffs, but you don't usually hear a coach say it this bluntly and forthrightly, where he basically said, yeah, that third period, like that wouldn't have happened if it was close. We just felt like, we wanted to, say, show how frustrated we were and set a tone. And some people looked at it as they lost their cool, and I think they did to a degree, but Knobloch more or less was like, look, that was all theater.
They put it was really funny. Yesterday's Puck Soup, I was listening on the way in today, and they're talking about that game 3, like, Florida does this thing to you where, all right, we're going to bully you, and you have to hit back. You have to answer them. You have to, answer the call. And then as soon as you play their way, it's like, oh, they got you. Like,
that's fair.
It's a real catch-22 with them, But we'll see, man. It's been a really entertaining series thus far. These are two freaking awesome teams. I'm looking forward to tonight's game. This is the best. These are the two best teams, or at least the best possible matchup of best player in the world against, ultimate playoff team. All right, coming up in about 20 minutes, we have the Athletics senior NHL prospect writer. That's right, Corey Pronman will be joining us to talk all things draft. That is a pretty big deal. But what I have to talk to you about right now, it's the big deal presented by Cherry Hill Kia. That's right. It is the big deal. I didn't have to say the other one. It's Kia today. Cherry Hill Kia.
The other one.
This is the big deal, and it is something we made a big deal about last week, and now, well, we've got some cold water thrown on one of the bigger rumors surrounding the Flyers lately. We've talked a couple of times about Danny Briere's purported interest in Nic Hague. Kevin Kurz throws cold water on it yesterday, tweets out, Flyers' rumored interest in Vegas D-man Nic Hague was pretty strongly denied to me from a team source. I do not expect that to happen. Carry on. I think this is a couple of things. Once again, the Flyers are going to be mentioned in rumors because they want to be. Like, that's...
And also, Danny Briere has a lot of conversations. I have zero doubt in my mind that at times over the last calendar year, Danny has had conversations with Vegas about Nic Hague.
Absolutely.
I believe that they have expressed interest. That's more or less what I've heard. That at times there's been like, hey, we want to add some size to our blue line. You might be willing to move this guy in the summer. Could there be a fit? But I do also believe that Kevin's source is right in that it's probably been overblown by the media at large.
Vegas makes a ton of moves. The Flyers have assets and cap space, and we know they want to get bigger on the blue line. There is probably a little bit of, they talked, so that's probably happening. We heard about the swap of a winger and a defenseman between these teams, so okay, connect some dots here. But I will say, I think we have to remember this organization, maybe not Lou level, but they operate in the dark. When they get the bigger defenseman that they want, it's not going to be someone that we've talked about. Like, maybe. It could very well be, but it just seems as if we don't hear about what's going to happen with this team until it happens.
The only thing that has been an exception to that was the Rick Tocchet hire, but I do suspect that those leaks were not coming from the Flyers. They were coming from Rick Tocchet.
And at a certain point, were these even rumors or just like... It's Rick Tocchet. He's going to be available. Yeah. We know what the Flyers want to do. They need a coach. Yeah. Like, it just kind of on the nose. Like, we got a mailbag question a couple of days ago that was like, were the Flyers a little hasty in hiring Tocchet because after the playoffs, like, some guys are getting fired, this and that.
Pete DeBoer.
Yeah. And Peter DeBoer is a good coach. Maybe you would have liked to interview him. But there was absolutely nothing that was going to stop them from hiring Rick Tocchet. Like, maybe you would have liked for the search to be a little more extensive, but they had a guy. They wanted a guy. They got the guy.
It seems like in
It's
retrospect,
pretty much that's all that was going to happen.
if Tocchet was available and he wanted to be Flyers coach, he was going to be
Yes.
Flyers coach. When I interviewed Dan Hilferty after the announcement press conference, the one thing that he said to me that jumped out at me was when he said, the one thing I required to have happen in this process was I required the interview process to be extensive. I required, the front office to interview a bunch of candidates because I felt like it was important. That tells me that they told Hilferty, we want Tocchet, and he's like, look, I'm not going to say no, but you can't just interview Tocchet. You got to do an actual search here, guys, before you just go and hire Tocchet.
Like we did a search, we found him. It's Rick Tocchet. Like there's a treasure map, and the X was on Rick Tocchet. Yeah, we did the search. It was him. He was in Vancouver. Now he's in Philadelphia.
But that was my read on that answer, where like Hilferty basically is like, look, if you do a search and you believe after interviewing 7 or 8 guys and also Tocchet, and you still believe Tocchet's the guy, I'll support it. But you got to do a search.
Jonesy, Pat PHLY. He just won the national championship. Can you pick up the phone so that there's a report we did it at least? Like it really feels that way. But yeah, the Nic Hague thing, I do think, probably overblown. I'm sure Danny Briere has had lots. I bet you he's talked to perhaps 31 general managers in the league, and when he wakes up in the morning, he has the conversation with number 32 in the mirror. Like, I'm sure he's having a lot of conversations, and this one was like, well, there's a name attached, and now it's, listen, I'm not above it either. We're a little starved for content. As much as, the draft, it's still a few weeks away. We got to get there, and there aren't going to be trades around that probably until that day. Trades can be made. We'll talk about Chris Kreider maybe later, but like nothing's actually happening. There's the possibility of things happening. So when a rumor pops up, got to jump all over this Nic Hague stuff. And now after the Kerr's, denial, it's like, oh, well, now we're going to make content about that. And like, look, I'm doing it too. It's not as if I'm above this discourse. Right. It's just kind of, we want stuff to happen because it's been a while.
I roll my eyes at it.
I know you do, Charlie. You come in every day and we look at the outline and you're like, do we have to? It's 60 minutes. How do you want to fill the time?
Well, we can fill the time by talking to Corey Pronman about draft process.
We have like great content today coming up in about 10 minutes. Corey Pronman will be joining us and we'll actually get to talk about stuff that's going to happen because there's going to be a draft and the Flyers are going to pick at 6 and perhaps after that as well. But it's, I think we're all just kind of waiting for something to happen because it hasn't in a while. Like it's been a while since they've had a busy offseason, and now it feels like it's going to be. Well, even if it's not the biggest names, they don't make a huge splash. It's like they're going to make acquisitions of some kind, and it's been some time since we've got to have that feeling.
And I think the Nic Hague rumors, reports, whatever you want to characterize them as, they're still important in what they tell you about the Flyers, even if the Flyers don't ultimately get Nic Hague. And we'll see. Just because, and I have the utmost respect for Kevin, I don't believe he made this up, but just because he reported that there's no interest right now, things could change very quickly in hockey. Maybe Vegas calls them back and is like, yeah, we'll be willing to do it for Jacob Pelletier. And it's like, all right, yeah, we'll do that. Sure, done. So things can change quick. But when you have people like Elliot Friedman and even Anthony DeMarco, who does a really good job at Daily Faceoff, like they're almost certainly not making this stuff up either. So there's reason to believe that there was some smoke here. And the fact that there was some smoke here tells you that maybe the Flyers are indeed, maybe it's not going to be Nic Hague, but the Flyers are indeed interested in beefing up their defense and adding some size. Maybe not now, maybe not this offseason, but at some point in the future, they could go out and trade for that 6'5", 6'6" behemoth to be the partner for Jamie Drysdale long-term.
And it could be as simple as, like, Danny wanted Nic Hague, and we know that they want a bigger blue line. And then Vegas goes, oh, yeah, we want 22 or Cam York. And Danny's like, no.
Exactly.
Okay, we're not interested now if that's the price. Yeah. And if the price becomes, pick 48, perhaps that changes the conversation a little bit.
Sure.
But I just wanted to get to that because I just find it funny. Like, oh, we talked about Nic Hague for 2 days, and now we're going to it's not happening. And then when they ultimately trade for him.
Then it happened.
Yeah, and then it did happen.
Yeah, and then when Elliot Friedman on Wednesday of next week is like, ooh, I'll talk speeding back up with Nic Hague on Flyers, maybe. Then we'll be talking about it again.
I would be very much willing to do it for Jacob Peltier. There's some other rumors and stuff going around that I think we're going to get to at the end of today's show. But Charlie, the Lady Byng. What is this award?
This is your least favorite award, isn't it?
If a Flyer were to win the Lady Byng, I would demand he be traded immediately. I do not want gentlemanly play. There are. It was Anze Kopitar wins the award.
Anze?
That's what it is, right?
Is it? I always thought it was Anze Kopitar. Is it Anze?
I think the Z is a J.
Huh, okay.
I think.
Anze Kopitar. All right. Fair enough.
Anze Kopitar?
Anze Kopitar is more.
Yeah, I just said it dumb.
Sounds closer.
Yes.
I thought you were saying like Angie.
Yeah, no, I just said
like
it
Angie's
dumb
List?
because I can't talk. But yeah, professional speaker and
Okay.
all. But he wins. I think it's his third Lady Byng. 3 Panthers got votes. And I wonder if there's like a locker room fine if you show up on the Lady Byng ballot for them. Like, I don't understand what this award's
So
like.
what? It was Barkov. Okay, Forsling got some votes, and who was the third? Oh, Reinhart.
Reinhart got
okay.
a vote,
I mean, Barkov. It's very funny with Barkov because he is a very gentlemanly player.
Yes.
He's just like the eye of the hurricane.
Yes.
He's the calm center where all the chaos swirls around him.
No, it's funny. And like I will say I was always impressed. Like, if you can play that Selke level style, like one of the things that always impressed me about what Sean Couturier was able to do, it was like, yeah, and at the end of the year, he has like 18 penalty minutes. Like, really? Because you were just, how did you not hook a guy 10 times? Like, this is your whole job, is keeping these dudes in front of you, and they're really good. Like, it is impressive if you're able to do it. But just the idea of winning the award for like, yeah, he never cross-checks anyone in the mouth. I'm like, do you really want to be that guy? Like, you didn't get an A fight this year?
I mean, I don't know, man. I would be perfect. Like, looking at the names on the top of this list, like,
I know.
Anze Kopitar, would have loved to have had him his entire career. Braden Point, maybe my favorite player in the league. Jack Eichel, yeah, that'd be cool. Jacob Slavin, awesome. Nick Suzuki, really good. Cale Makar, best defenseman of his generation. Like, I'd take these guys, I think.
I know. I wouldn't want a Flyer to win it. That's all.
Okay.
I want the perception, at least, that we are not a team of, Lady Byng Memorial winners. I will say I want the trophy renamed for Johnny Gaudreau, because what the hell is Lady Byng? Like, it's someone's wife. Like,
it's a fair point.
It was just named after some random human being.
Yeah.
Like, who the hell cares?
My big issue with the Lady Byng has always been and will always be that I don't think, and I say this as a voting member of the PHWA, I voted on this award. I don't think we should vote on it.
This should be a players
I think
award.
this is either a players voted award or, and I like this one the best, or an officials voted award. Because I feel
the
like
officials would be good.
I feel like the officials, and they don't get votes on anything. I feel like they are best suited to know who is actually gentlemanly.
Yeah.
Or who is, they don't take penalty minutes, but
They're a dick.
they're dirty and they whine
Yes.
and like they don't play the gentlemanly game even if they're not taking penalties.
Yeah. Anytime I addressed an official, it was Mr. Official Sir. And then, like, I'd yell at them.
Right.
Like, Mr. Official Sir, F you. Like, I said, sir, like, all due respect, but that's...
I said all due respect, so anything I say after that is fine.
I think what bothered me about the Lady Byng is that, like, they've announced the Norris and the Calder, and it's like, oh, yeah, we threw this one after, as if it is
it's more important.
Like, no, this should have been the first one award. Like, this should have been the first one named, but maybe it's just, all right, now... Everyone get up, get your popcorn, and then the main event.
And then we get the heart,
like, I guess. We'll see. But it is the award show tonight? I think that they said game 4, right?
It says the best players and coaches will be celebrated in the 2025 NHL Awards, a 1-hour special that will premiere tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern on TNT in the U.S. and Sportsnet in Canada before game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final. Indeed.
All right. So the host is, of course, a guy from an Old Spice commercial 15 years ago.
I will say my Friday Night Lights loving self has enjoyed the NHL playoffs commercial with Tim Riggins.
Oh,
I've enjoyed that immensely.
Who doesn't
and Tim
love
Riggins is Canadian, so it fits. But every time that commercial comes up, I absolutely do the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood Leo DiCaprio pointing at the television like, it's Tim Riggins, it's Tim Riggins.
All right. I feel like my ads have changed. So, but okay, I just had it wrong. Let us get to our first commercial break. All right, I got to lead it off telling you about the Hall of Fame Bets app. That's right, the HOF app, because it is honestly pretty freaking genius. This app, really, really simple to use. All it does is make your parlays stronger. We all know how fun it is. You know, Saturday afternoon, you sit down, full day of sports, you put together your SGPs, you put together your full day parlays, just going to have a great time watching some sports and hope that you can knock it out of the park. And what happens? You know, you get 6 of your 7 legs, and then the heartbreaker, the last thing you needed, boom, all of that hard work out the window. What HOF does, real simple. You put in your parlay and it identifies your weak legs, the ones that have the least chance of hitting. You take them out, and all of a sudden your odds go way, way up. It is very simple to use, invented by a couple of mathematicians. This wasn't just, oh yeah, it's, you know, I have a way of deciding what my parlays are. It's tell all my buddies, you know, someone died, so Nick Castellanos obviously in my parlay today. No. This is all based on data and science, and it is super easy to use. The best feature, you put in your parlay, it tells you which legs are the weakest. You take those out, and then with one tap, it opens up your sportsbook of choice, and you can place your parlay that easy. Really fun app to use. I have been having a ball with it. And now for a limited time only, you can as well, because our listeners not only get a 7-day free trial, but they also get 50% off their first month when they use code PHLY at checkout. All you have to do is download the HOF app on iOS and Android, or visit hofbets.com and enter the code PHLY, and you're all set. It is that simple. And now it's time to tell you about Ace Hardware Home Services. Because if you have an outlet you said you'd fix last summer, Ace Hardware Home Services has got the person to do the fixing and all of the supplies as well. Because now Ace isn't just the helpful hardware folks, they're also the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing and electrical to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long at Ace Hardware Home Services. They're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love from the store, now to your front door. From Philly to the Jersey Shore. They helped me out with my AC last year. Just an outstanding group of people at Ace Hardware Home Services. You got to check out Ace. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. And now, without any further ado, we present the senior NHL prospect writer for The Athletic. It is our friend Corey Pronman. What's going on today, Corey?
Guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. Great to talk to you, Corey. Corey and I obviously were longtime colleagues of The Athletic before I joined PHLY. So I've had many a conversation with Corey about prospects over the years. He does incredible work over there at The Athletic. But Corey, thanks so much for jumping on the show. Definitely going to get all of your insights and expertise today, and kind of want to just kick it off with a general question, because this is probably the question that Flyers fans are most interested to hear answers to. You spent last week at the Combine, watching the players, talking to the players, but also, chatting up people in the industry. The Flyers generally keep things pretty close to the chest in terms of what they're going to do, what their preferences are. But was there any buzz at the Combine in the industry about, directions that they might take at the draft?
Nothing too much. I mean, I think the players that they spent the most time talking to were the obvious names. These are not surprising names. Jake O'Brien, James Hagens, Porter Martone, Brady Martin, all players that we kind of expect are going to go, bang, bang, bang in that 4 to 8 range, 4 to 9 range. So nothing really too illuminating on that front. What I thought was interesting was when their assistant general manager talked to Kevin Kurz about their draft plans. He insinuated that they aren't just going to be tunnel visioned on taking a center, that they will consider, just how far off the talent spectrum they are when it comes to a winger or a defenseman. And that to me was a way of kind of dancing around if Porter Martone, the big winger from Brampton, is there at 6. it will really depend how those first 5 picks went in front of them, how the centers, which there's so many centers in this draft, good centers, and how they have those players rated. Do they have them rated as potential second line centers? Do they think there's a chance that they could be a first line center, or maybe they could be a first line wing too? Do they have Martone potentially projected as a first line wing, as many in the NHL do? I think that's the one interesting variable I kind of took out of the combine is I thought that they were a center all the way at 6, and I still think I would say 80 to 90% chance just based on their needs and the talent pool. It feels that's what's going to happen, but I wouldn't rule out Martone as a pick for them as well.
Corey, just we're hyper focused on centers here in Philly because the Flyers really don't have any. And we've talked a little about some of these guys at the top of the draft, like you said, ton of centers available, or at least guys listed as centers. How many of them do you actually think are going to stick at the position, though? We've talked about O'Brien, we've talked about Frondell, we've talked about Brady Martin. Maybe these guys aren't going to actually be centers. Who do you think has the best chance of sticking at the position?
That's a great question. And it's kind of funny when we get to this stuff because I think sometimes it's in the eye of the beholder who's actually a center or not. I mean, you look at this season, Frondell played wing for most of the year in Djurgården. Denoye, who I think everyone feels is the most likely to be a center in the NHL, actually played wing for most of the second half in Moncton. Michael Misa, when he's been it played internationally, he's often been a wing. He played wing to Denoye, for example, at the CHL NTDP series in November. Jake O'Brien has played some wing internationally. And, kind of funny, the only one who's really been the center almost every single time I've watched him has been James Hagens. But then you get into the questions of his size and is he more Logan Cooley, Jack Hughes, or is he closer to Clayton Keller, who was also a center all the way through his amateur levels? And then from day one, when he was a pro, he became a wing. I think for me, Denoye is the most likely to stay in the middle. I think Frondell and Misa just because of their size, and Denoye too, just that they have the size, the skating, the two-way play. I think that's gives him the best chance to stick down the middle. There's a chance that O'Brien could be like, I don't think he's Elias Pettersson, but he could be using that Elias Pettersson way where he's a quote unquote center, but because he's maybe not the heaviest guy, not like super, super fast, he might be someone you flex to the wing at times. And Hagens will be fascinating. They're really, I've thought about comparing him to guys like William Nylander. I thought about comparing him to Matthew Barzal, and those are kind of guys similar ways. Sometimes they're centers, sometimes they're not. It depends what the lineup looks like. So, it really kind of depends on just again how you perceive these players. But I feel like the sure thing, which would be Frondell, Denoye, I think it's trending now where it's unlikely they're going to be available at 6, although it's not impossible one's available at 6.
Yeah, you mentioned Caleb Desnoyers, and you have him ranked 4th in your final rankings, and you say in your write-up that you believe the upside is 1C if all breaks well. There is, I think, some skepticism in Flyers fan circles about his ceiling, and some people are maybe down on him as a potential option. They see him as lower upside than some of the other guys. You are a believer. What gives you the confidence that he does have that top of the lineup upside?
I think that was a fair criticism of him coming into the year, just based on what I saw from his 16-year-old season. Like he looked like a good player, didn't think look like a special offensive player. But he was really impressive this year whenever I watched him, especially in the queue. I mean, and there's the asterisk that it's the queue, and you don't want to get too over the top about how guys look in that league. But I saw him make a lot of high-end skill plays on a consistent basis. You go back to maybe some recent Q graduates. You look at Nico Hischier, you look at Pierre-Luc Dubois. His impact and his production at that level are very similar. Is very similar to what those players did at the same age. I'm not saying he's for sure going to be that in the NHL, but I think when you look at what he did in the season, when you look at what he did in the Q playoffs, while playing with 2 bum wrists the entire time, I think he's got a really good chance to be a 60, 65 point scorer who can play heavy two-way minutes. And however you want to label that, I think that's an impactful player.
So I want to talk a little bit about the draft as a whole, because Flyers fans were told by the Flyers, both publicly and through back channels, through leaks to reporters and whatnot, that they believed last year that this draft was going to be deeper than last year's draft, particularly in that like 20 to 40, 20 to 50 range. It's one of the reasons why they traded back from the Edmonton pick last year to this year. Then everybody starts seeing reports that this is a weak draft. What I'm curious is how much of the perception that this is a weak draft is driven by the fact that last year you had Celebrini at number one, a clear-cut stud at number one, and this year doesn't have that. Like, how much of the weaknesses of this draft aren't necessarily going to impact the Flyers given where they're picking? They're picking at 6, they're picking late in the first round, they have all those early seconds. Or is it something that they could run into where the weakness of the draft could hurt their attempts to, really take advantage of all the picks they have?
Yeah, I think this is maybe an average draft, probably slightly below average. But to your point, whenever I just see, whenever I think about a draft description in terms of how it compares to other years, I think once you get past pick 10, they all tend to look the same. There are some real outliers. Like you go back to the 2021 draft, for example, and it happened to be the COVID year draft, but that one looks just awful in hindsight. And then you have a couple of other ones with the years like the 2015, which was just, something that's just outstanding. But for the most part, it tends to be, 5 to 8 really high end guys, 20 good guys, 45 50 solid players. That tends to be how drafts tend to go. It's how I think this draft is. It's how I thought last year's draft was. With the big difference is that we don't have Macklin Celebrini in this draft. Matthew Schaefer is not in the same. I love Matthew Schaefer, but he's not in the same conversation as him. You would probably have preferred a top 5 pick in 2023 to this year. I like the top 5 players this year, but they don't. They don't go Bedard, Adam Fantilli, Leo Carlson, Matvei Michkov, Will Smith. It's not that level of player. And last year's 6 through 12, I really liked that group. Like getting Sam Dickinson and Z Boyum, 11, 12, sorry for mentioning Boyum. But just, but just talking about that in general, like that was a much more exciting players to get in that 8 to 12 range. But I did an article today talking about how this year's draft compared to last year's draft, and it's very comparable once you get past Celebrini. Like I think you look at, Frondell, Denoyer, Jake O'Brien, James Hagens, they're all extremely comparable to the guys who went in that 2 to 6 range last year. And in terms of where the Flyers picks, their later first round picks or second round picks, yeah, I mean, I think it's par for the course in terms of what they're going to get. I think you're hoping with those 2 first round picks, you're going to get an NHL player. You're hoping in the second, that with a high second, you have a decent chance of getting a player. I would, going back to last year, I'm not sure I would have had the kind of confidence to say what the draft looks like a year from now. I barely have confidence to say what this draft looks like, so I struggle with that a little bit, but, I think everything looks pretty standard to me, other than the fact that I think if you're maybe San Jose at 2, Chicago at 3, you're not in love with the high impact guys right at that pick, but otherwise it looks pretty standard.
Corey, I am fascinated by by the perception of James Hagens, because a year ago seemed like he's the consensus number 1 pick for the 2025 draft. And now there's a world where he could very well be available to the Flyers at 6, and it might not be a given he goes there. Like, what happened with Hagens? Is it so much that he disappointed, or have others just really broken out to move ahead of him?
Well, there's a couple of variables in play here. One is that Hagens is a late birth date, so he got to play his 17-year-old season in the prior year, and we didn't get to see Matthew Schaefer play his 18-year-old year, or Caleb Denoyer, or Michael Misa, and others. And that's jump from 16 to 17 is massive for a lot of those players. And like Schaefer's like basically a full year younger than Hagens. He's like I think he's a September 07 and Hagens is a October or November 06. So that's just an example there in terms of the 1-1 conversation. Hagens had a really nice year at BC, still a point per game player, top line center for one of the best teams in the country, top line center for Team USA at the World Juniors. I don't think he had a bad year overall, but when you think of what a 1-1 year has to be for a guy with that frame, he's not a two-way guy in the NHL. He's an offense guy, and his offense was very good, but it wasn't exceptional. I think only the 10, 11 goals this year. He was a little inconsistent at times. There were plenty of games where I watched him at BC where he wasn't highly noticeable at even strength, even though he still had a great year overall. And you look at his production, it's very similar to what Matty Beniers and Kent Johnson did in their draft years a few years ago. It's not on that Fantilli, Macklin Celebrini level. And he probably doesn't compare really to Beniers, because Beniers is bigger and he has that excellent two-way game. But I think, he's very comparable to what Kent Johnson did. Kent Johnson is taller. Hagens is a way better skater, but Johnson also was a prolific junior scorer coming into college. They're kind of I would say Hagens is probably a little bit ahead of Johnson at the same age. But I think their projections are similar. You're thinking about a first line forward. Hagens could be first line center. I think you're stretching it a little bit to get him there, but it's not an unreasonable. I think if he gets a little bit more consistent, adds a little bit more interior game to his play, like we saw when he was playing against smaller players in junior, I think he could get closer to where he was. So I think where he lands is going to be one of the most interesting parts of the draft, because I do feel he's getting beat up a little bit in the pre-draft process. Just talking to teams, I would say it's there's still some big James Hagens fans in the league, but there's a lot of people in the league that I talk to who have skepticisms about how his game's going to translate, how it's going to translate to the NHL playoffs in particular. But at the end of the day, I still think he's probably one of, if not the most purely talented offensive player in the draft. And it'll be a really interesting predicament for Philly if he's there at 6, because on talent, he absolutely fits. He fits the slot on talent. He fits the positional need for them. But really, up until when Buffalo did this last year, when they picked Consta Helenius and with Zach Benson the year before, and Noah Osland and Matt Savoy the year before that, there really hasn't been any recent precedent of a team taking a 5'11" or smaller guy with a first round pick 3 years in a row. And Philly will kind of be locking themselves into a pretty small core if they chose Hagens. And it doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. There are, Pittsburgh won with small forwards. Tampa won with small forwards. If you get the right small forwards, it can work. But you better be sure he's the right one.
So James Hagens, obviously a guy people are excited about in Philly. Another guy who's been linked to Philly, really linked to everybody in that like 4 to 8 range, 4 to 7 range, I guess, over the last couple weeks is Brady Martin. He's the guy who has the excitement around him, it seems like, in the scouting community. But I'm curious from your perspective, because you're obviously on the ground, all year. You're talking to scouts, you're at games. How much of the hype around Brady Martin right now was driven by how impressive he was at the under-18 Worlds at the end of the season, and how much of it was already bubbling before that? Because I think to Flyers fans who follow the draft, not nearly as closely as you, but pretty closely, sort of look at it as that he's sort of come out of nowhere as an option this high over the last maybe month and a half.
I think going into the U18s, he was seen as a top 10 candidate, just based on that he actually had a really good second half there in the OHL, and just a really unique player with his physicality. He has legit skill, but you were wondering how high-end the offense was, and then he goes to the U18s, and he's one of Canada's best players to go with the physicality and the compete that makes him so exciting. So I think I think he went from probably a 6 to 12 type of guy going into the U18s, and he left there, in that next group of those 7, 8 forwards that we're all been talking about as the top guys. He elevated himself firmly into that group. So I don't think it's unreasonable. I have some mild questions on Brady and his projection. I do wonder a little bit about, exactly how much offense he's going to have. I do wonder about, it's not, even though he's a super physical player in junior, he is 6'0". It's not an elite skater. So I have some minor questions there. I mean, the Sam Bennett comparisons has been coming out in droves in the NHL world. I've been talking to about him, which is interesting because I feel like if you go through Sam Bennett's draft class, he may not go top 5 in that draft class if you go through the names with Pasternak and Dylan Larkin and Sam Reinhart, William Nylander, who I mentioned before could be a potential outcome for Hagens. Would you take Nylander or Bennett? I don't know. Would you take Aaron Ekblad or Bennett? I don't know. So I think that's an interesting conversation in regards to Martin, but there's no doubt the hype is real, and there's quite frankly a chance he's not even available at Philly's pick at this point.
Yeah. So yesterday we spent some time talking about Jack Nesbitt and just the variety of opinions on his upside. I've seen like a lot of late first, even second round grades for Nesbitt, but we referenced your draft ranking because you have him 15th on your big board. What do you think others are like maybe missing something on Nesbitt? What makes you so bullish on him?
I wasn't expecting a Nesbitt question, but I'm fine to answer it. I mean, he was one of the Windsor's best players this season, and I know he didn't. The point totals weren't gaudy, but that was a power play that ran through Liam Greentree and Elias Protas, and he was kind of more the net front guy, but he still played 20 to 23 minutes a night, all situations, while providing plenty of physical play. He's very skilled. I think next year, probably Protas is going to move on to the AHL, and he's going to have a monster year there in Windsor. And I think the offense concerns will go away. He reminds me a lot of Connor Geekie at the same age, with the skating's kind of rough, but he's huge. He has great hands. There's a little bit of pushback in his game. I really like this player. His U18s were kind of underwhelming, but I kind of think like you're talking about it. I'm sure you're talking about him with Philly's pick in the early 20s. Like, I mean, I've talked to people who don't even know if he's going to get to that point in the draft. So I think when you talk about guys who can play center and feel like they projected NHL centers, like those guys go fast. And I feel like this guy's got a chance to be a third line center in the NHL. And even though he's caught us slow and the numbers aren't amazing, I would like he could go right around that early 20s range. Like I'm thinking maybe like 18 to 23 is probably his outcome. So I think it makes sense to talk about with Philly, but I don't think just based on my conversation with people in the league, I don't think I'm an outlier. I think that's like 15 to 25 range is where he's going.
Okay. One question I wanted to ask you is about one of my favorite articles that you do every year, the Draft Confidential article, where you talk to scouts and executives. You get them on the record but anonymous to talk about the players and talk about the draft. It's a fascinating read. Highly recommend for anybody watching who is an Athletic subscriber. But you quoted an executive in that story talking about the goalies. And you quoted an executive who said they'd give the 2 Russian goalies second-round grades, and I quote, if we felt comfortable taking Russians, implying that organization does not. How real is the Russian factor still? Are there still a lot of teams that just aren't in that market on draft day? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Danny Briere and the Flyers very much are, and I just wonder if that's a potential advantage that they can use to get undervalued guys.
I guess it depends on your perspective. I think a lot of teams aren't in the Russian market because they just don't see the players. They don't go to international tournaments. They can't. There's a lot of the league that's still extremely highly valued, being able to see the players live and getting not just everyone has area scouts who can see these guys live, but being able to get the guys overseas that are the decision makers to see the players live. And they're bringing a lot of Russian players, for example, to Dan Milstein's camp here next week. And I'm going to be at it. I anticipate all 32 head scouts are going to be there just for that rare opportunity to watch that, even though it's like a week before the draft and it's just like shinny hockey. But for those reasons, I just sense, I would say at least anywhere, like I think at least a third of the league is just explicitly no when it comes to using a top 2-3 round pick on players in Russia. Late round picks, mid round picks, they're more open to it, but I think they just view that as too much risk and uncertainty on players who they feel they don't know as comfortable as others. When it came to like Matvei Michkov, we all saw him live in previous years, but for the most part in their draft year, the Flyers are doing video on the guy, and I would be comfortable doing that. I know other teams who would be comfortable doing that, and I know plenty of teams who would feel they just would not feel comfortable taking such a massive gamble, maybe not gamble, but staking such a significant part of their career on a guy who they haven't seen play live. I appreciate both sides of the argument, but that's kind of where the league is in that regard.
Gotcha. Corey, thanks again. One more question for you, and this is more of a bigger picture question for your approach. So you've been doing this for a long time, and I remember reading you over a decade ago. And when you got started, you definitely seem to lean a little bit more on the small skill guys that tend to be loved by maybe the online scouting community, the people on Twitter, the people on social media. And it seems like now you're a little bit more, the emphasis on size. And you mentioned about James Hagens, about, the concerns about will he perform in the playoffs? Like that's more of a like traditional scouting view of a player that I think the consensus online is that he's awesome. He shouldn't go past 5. He shouldn't maybe go past 3. I guess, how did you develop in terms of maybe not changing your view wholesale on prospect evaluation, but it's clear that it has changed over the years. And I'm curious kind of how that's happened.
I think with anybody, when it comes to prospect evaluation, I think this would apply in any sport, it's you don't know until you get to the end of the road, really. Like, when the first draft class I ever evaluated, I think was the 2009 draft class, 2008 draft class. And, you're just starting to get down to the point where that draft class is starting to fully retire and or get close to it. And, until you see an age group go from 17 till age 25, you don't know, what you got wrong or what translated and what didn't. And I'm unfortunately getting a little bit old now, where when I see players come up in their draft years like this year, I'll be talking to people who've just started in the last few years, and I'm doing something like Craig Button does, where I'll reference a guy who I watched like 12 years ago or something like that. Oh yeah, he reminds me of that. Like I was when I'm watching LJ Mooney at the program this year, like, oh yeah, he reminds me of Rocco Grimaldi, who I watched like a decade ago at the same age or something like that, over a decade ago actually now. So like there's a little bit of that in that regard, where it's experience, and it's not about, my philosophy. It's not about some sort of like political view on scouting or how to build a team or whatever. I think you have a process, you have a model that you use when you're trying to put together a list and project players. And I mean, ever since I've been doing this, that model changes every single year. And you're just trying your best, trying to use all your information. I don't think it's anything more, complicated than that.
Gotcha. Real quick, one last question, and this is real quick answer for you. If you were looking at 6 for the Flyers, best case scenario from a talent and fit standpoint as a player, what's the best case scenario pick for you if you are Danny Briere and hoping against hope that this guy's there?
I mean, you have to say what's realistic, obviously. Like Misa's not getting
Okay,
the
well,
6,
not
for
Misa or
example.
Schaefer.
Yeah. For me, it'd be Caleb Denoyer. I feel like he's probably gone by 6, just based on my read of the room. I feel like they have a decent chance to be looking at one of Porter Martone or James Hagens at 6. And I would be excited by both. I can already feel the tension in the room if they take Martone, and they've got to explain to the fan base how in a draft full of centers they did not walk out with a center. And next year's draft, quite frankly, does not look very high end in terms of centers. I know it's way too early, et cetera, but like there's no like, usually at this point you see like obvious guys stand out by now, and it's mostly a lot of wingers and defensemen right now for the most part. There's like 1 or 2 good centers. So I can feel the hesitation there, but I would still be excited to take Hagens if he was there, even with their, I think when you're picking 2 or 3, that would have been more of a conversation. Like, should we go towards Misa? Should we go towards Frondel or Denoyer? We have options here. How do we want to build our team? When you're picking towards the end of that top group, the decisions have been made for you. So even though they've already been quite small, I think you can still be quite not comfortable, but I think you're fine taking Hagens because he is still a pretty special player. So whichever one of those 2 were available, I think I'd be really excited. And I think he gets legit first line talent. Is it a first line center? I don't know. We'll see. Maybe a second line center, maybe a first line weak, maybe a first line center if a lot goes well in his development. But I think those would both be exciting players to get at the 6th overall pick.
All right, Corey, thank you so much for your time today. That is senior prospect writer for the NHL over at The Athletic, Corey Pronman. Hit us with your socials and where to find your work.
At Corey Pronman, just my name. And obviously you can read me at The Athletic, where we will be very busy over the next few weeks.
Outstanding. Looking forward to reading all of your work. Thank you so much for making the time today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Corey.
Yep, sure thing. Thanks, guys.
All right, and with that, we have to hit our next commercial break. Oh, okay. All right. The low prices are a bloomin' at Ashley Furniture, so you got to spring into savings now and save up to 50% off living rooms, bedrooms, and dining rooms. And you can have it all delivered for free. That's right. Plus, get long-term, no-interest financing, and you can always save on top brand mattresses and get that free delivery setup and removal as well. But do not wait. You have to spring into savings now at Ashley, South Jersey, and Philadelphia. Financing with approved credit. Minimum purchase required. Some exclusions may apply. See store for complete details. Hurry to Ashley or visit ashleyfurniture.com for more information. And while we're here, got to tell you about our friends at TrueMark Financial Credit Union. Because summer's here. It's just around the corner, which means the kids are out and about, hanging with friends, maybe even picking up a summer job, and it's the perfect time to set them up with something that teaches real-world money skills and gives them a little bit of freedom as well. It's the Greenlight Debit Card and Money app. If you're a TrueMark Financial member, you can get a free Greenlight account for your kids or teens. It's a simple way for them to manage their own money, whether it's from a job, allowance, or their birthday cash. They'll get their own debit card, they can set savings goals, track their spending, and learn how to budget, all while you stay in the loop from your phone. You're still in control, but they get to learn how money really works in everyday life. So before the summer rush kicks in, this is a great way to help your kids build smart money habits that'll stick with them long after the season's over. So head over to truemark.com/greenlight and get all the details and sign up today. Don't miss the chance to set your kids up for financial success. All right, that was a really good segment there with Corey. I'm glad we were able to get everything in. Glad I was able to throw him with a Jack Nesbitt question.
Yeah, right.
I like closure. Like, we had this conversation yesterday, and it's like, I don't know, like some people have him ranked in the 40s. He has him at 15, but the size stuff is really good. Like, oh, interesting perspective. You started one way, but yeah, if the first draft you covered is 2009, now we get to see how that actually worked out.
Yeah.
And because we do those redrafts, like a year, 2 years later, whatever. But when you actually have the perspective of their whole careers and you can look back at what you got right, what you got wrong, it makes sense that, philosophy or whatever has changed.
Yeah, and the Morgan Geekie comparison for Nesbitt was interesting. Going to Morgan Geekie took him a little bit of time to become the guy he is, but this season did have 57 points in 77 games for Boston, 39 points in 76 games the year before. So that's very much in that middle six range. Yes. And I get it, where if you're Corey and you are giving him a Morgan Geekie comparison, that does make sense that he would be in that, mid to high teens range rather than being a bottom sixer type.
All right, I think we have a decent number of super chats, so we can do the Mason Marchment stuff tomorrow.
Yeah.
Before we get to the super chats, I got a couple of things to let you know about going on here at PHLY. Obviously, the draft party, huge. We'll get to that a little bit later, but I got to tell you about the ball knower bonus. That's right. For all you puck knowers out there, here is your chance to cash in. We talked at the beginning of the show, Game 4 finally here. It feels like it's been a week since Game 3, and now you get a chance to put your predictions into action and maybe get a gift card to the PHLY merch store. Here's all you got to do. First, click the link in the description of this show and make your pick. Real simple. Oilers or Panthers? Who is going to win the game? Then you place an order in the ALLCITY merch store for $25 or more, and if you pick correctly, if your team wins, you get a gift card to the merch store for the same amount as your original order. Super simple. It's basically a BOGO if you get the pick right. One important thing, you have to click the link in the chat or in the show notes to qualify for the gift card. So real easy tonight. Is it Oilers or is it Panthers? For all you ball knowers out there, make the pick, then place an order. If you pick correctly, you get the gift card. That's simple. That is the ball knower bonus from PHLY. And just as a note here, all the on-sale items, they're eligible as well. You just have to make an order for over $25 at checkout. Real easy. That is the ball knowers bonus. And while we're talking about internal stuff, PHLY is going live for 12 straight hours. It's a streamathon on Wednesday, June 18th. It is go time, and it is presented by our friends at TrueMark Financial. That's right. We have a full day of wall-to-wall sports, laughs, chaos, and your favorite PHLY talent doing what we all do best, keeping Philly fans entertained, informed, and perhaps a little bit unhinged. We're going to have special guests, behind-the-scenes surprises, maybe even a little friendly competition between all the shows. Whether you're repping the Birds, Bleeding Orange, or just here for the vibes, you're not going to want to miss it. It's all streaming right here on our YouTube channel. Do not miss it. And the best way to support us, I tell you at the end of every show, it's hit that subscribe button. Not only does it help us creating the content Philly fans deserve, but it gets you front row access to every moment of the madness. Mark your calendars. It is next Wednesday, June the 18th. PHLY Streamathon, 12 hours, all in a row. Nonstop content. Subscribe now right here on the YouTube. Don't miss any of it.
All right. Before we get to our super chats, we're at 174 likes. Let's get that
Not
to 200. Not enough.
Not enough. We just gave you like 25 minits of Corey Pronman.
Yeah.
We need 200 likes minimum.
Minimum.
All right. Let's hit these super chats.
Those are rookie numbers.
It's unacceptable, quite honestly. All right. First super chat is from JH. What kind of animal sacrifice will Bettman have to make in order to have an outdoor hockey game in Florida?
I honestly, this is one thing that I've just stopped following. I've stopped following any of the rumors about outdoor games. I just don't care about it that much anymore. Have there been rumors that there's going to be an outdoor game in Florida? Is that what's going on?
I suppose, I don't know. They did it in Vegas in 92. It's doable. You can have ice places. It's difficult and expensive, but you can do it.
Yeah.
The thing about outdoor games for me is they're just for local markets now. It is no longer a major TV event. It is not the first few Winter Classics. They do more than one a year. They do a bunch of them. And when they're in town, I'm never going to miss a Flyers outdoor game. I'm going to go to all of them, home or away. They're awesome. But they're for the home market. It's like an all-star game. Who the hell watches the all-star game anymore? Whatever. But you know what? They sell out. They sell a ton of jerseys. Kids love them. They're a big deal for social. But it's kind of just for the host city. It's really that's
so
what
there's
it is.
So there's going to be 2 games in Florida next year.
Okay.
Again, JH, this is clearly something you care about. This is clearly something I don't care about. But yes, I guess there are 2 games. One in the Florida Panthers area, and then one in the Tampa area next year in 2026.
I do remember that coming up on 32 Thoughts a few weeks ago.
I just don't care. I really don't.
It's awesome for Florida.
Yeah, it's good for them, but also it's what these outdoor games have become, where I only care about the outdoor games if they're in my area. Yeah. And if they're not, I don't care. And that's more or less what they've become. They become local celebrations of hockey rather than something that nationally is very interesting.
And they are super fun and
They
cool.
are a lot of fun.
I love the outdoor games, going to them when they're on TV. I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's today. And it doesn't
we're
help,
200,
it
201.
It doesn't help that
quick.
they keep changing the date of the Winter Classic. This, it's going to be on January 2nd.
Right.
It was on New Year's Eve this past season.
Right.
I don't know. Make it one day, but whatever.
Yeah. Thank you for getting us to 200 likes that quickly.
Appreciate it.
Well done, gang.
All right. From Stu Pedaccio. Is that what that says? Pedaccio?
Pedaccio.
Why no talk of trading the 31st for Isaac Howard?
I'm not that high on Isaac Howard. I get why he's interesting, because he's available, because it doesn't seem like he's going to sign an ELC with Tampa. I get it. And he did have very good production in the NCAA, 52 points in 37 games. But I don't know, to me, he's still a late first round type prospect. So, maybe, but also I don't want to give Tampa what he's actually worth, because they don't have leverage, Yeah,
if he's not signing.
Yeah, I don't know. He's just not the kind of guy where I'm super pumped to give up the 31st overall pick for him. Now, would I give up one of the seconds for him? Then now we're talking, but that seems a little much for a guy who everyone in the league knows at this point he's not going to sign with his team.
And if he's not, I would have to know, yeah, sure, late first for sounds good. Boost the talent pool, probably a better player than you're going to get at 31.
Is it though? Because we don't even know if he's a pro player.
Or I guess it's a known commodity.
It's a known commodity. He's a little bit further in his development.
For the 31st pick, someone that's a player to be named later. They have to make the pick. We'll see. We at least know that this is a guy with a name.
He's a fine prospect, but I'm not I don't look at him. I look at a guy who, went to Minnesota Duluth for a year, was underwhelming, then went to Michigan State, was good point per game, then last year had the big breakout and was really good. He's a good prospect, but I don't look at him as an, oh my God. He has a little bit of Rucker McGroarty to me, where he's a name, so people go crazy. And then when he actually turns pro, it's like, oh, he's going to take another 2-3 years? Really? Like, he's cool, and I would get him, but I'm not, like, dying to get Isaac Howard.
And we are, with that, headed to overtime. Head to allphly.com to keep watching if you're part of the TV audience. I would need to, is he not signing with Tampa because, you're blocked in Tampa because they're full of really good players? Or is it, I want to be a free agent? That's something I would need to know internally.
I would assume that if you trade for him, you've gotten assurances from him and his agent that he would sign with you. Obviously, he's not willing to give you those assurances. You don't trade for him. That'd be
just
stupid.
Because this happened, like Adam Fox got traded twice before he ended up in, he was in one place, then traded, and then he's like, I'm not signing here either.
Calgary to Carolina,
and then eventually finally ended up in the only place he was going to go. Right. Like, is it that situation? So I just need those assurances as well.
Sure.
All right. Next one here from Gary B. Don't want the, the Dan Hamhuis situation where you trade for his rights and then it's.
And you got to trade those rights again to Pittsburgh.
I ain't signing here either, man.
No, sorry.
All right. From Gary B. Bill, what do you listen to?
Do you listen to the Puck Soup podcast?
Do you listen to the Puck Soup podcast?
I don't know what that word after Bill is.
Yeah. I listen to Puck. I listen to a bunch of their main one. I don't subscribe to the Patreon. I did years ago. And then when Wish left, I was like, I don't know if I need to pay for this. But he's, I guess, on their Patreon now. But I listen to Puck Soup. I listen to a bunch of different national podcasts. No local ones except Flyers Daily, just because Jason rules.
Yeah, he's great.
But mostly national stuff. I don't like to listen to the local ones because I don't want it to be like, oh, and now that's my idea. Like, it's just,
you want to be original.
It's too easy to hear someone else say something and then, okay, that's our topic today. Right. Like, as much as I search for topics, I don't want it to be that easy.
That's fair.
Charlie, what do you think it'll take to hop back into the teens or early 20s?
Well, I mean, it should, if you're going by the draft pick value chart, 22 plus an early second is probably enough. That said, if a Roger McQueen is slipping, maybe it would take 22 and 31, 32, whatever that pick ultimately ends up being, because it then becomes more higher valued. Or maybe you include a player, include a prospect, something like that. But if you're going purely by value, 22 plus an early second puts you in the ballpark. But obviously, sometimes you got to overpay to get a deal done, especially if there's a really intriguing guy there. Because if you're jumping from 22, it's not as if you're jumping from, 17 to 14. Yeah. You're jumping, if you want to get like a Victor Eklund who slips to 12 or a Roger McQueen who slips to 13, you're going to be jumping 8, 9, 10 picks. So you're going to have to pay up.
Yeah, and obviously the team holding that pick knows that you put a premium on this player. Sure. It's not just going to be the value chart. It's like, well, all right, and then you got to pay a premium to us.
Exactly.
All right, next one here from Jason F. The Flyers are in search of a center via trade or an offer sheet. We have heard about Rossi being an option. What about Mason McTavish?
You like Mason McTavish, don't you?
I do.
You're a Mason McTavish guy.
Yeah.
I'm probably lower on him than you are, but I do like him. I like the compete. I like the two-way upside. I liked him in his draft year. I haven't followed him super closely since. But look, Flyers need a center, and they should be at least exploring the possibility of any center that is plausibly available.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is someone, I've mentioned this before, I think, but there's someone who's been in our mentions repeatedly saying it's a two-step process. You offer sheet McTavish. If they don't match, you have them. If they do, you come back next year and get Carlson.
I really don't think they're letting Carlson.
No, I don't either. It's just
they would trade guys away to keep Leo Carlson.
Probably. But I like McTavish. I don't know if he's like the surefire 1C, but they just need centers. So I don't hate the idea. I like them. All right. Here from Chase. What a win if we get. What is this? I can't see.
It says, what a win if we get Hagens or Martone at 6. Bill, how about a Bill Nye type opening theme one show? Bill Matt's the Flyers guy. Bill.
Just growing up with every time, just everyone looking at me in class. Bill. Yes, I know. I'm aware it is my name. The Bill Nye theme drives me absolutely freaking insane. Probably shouldn't say it because now people are going to like yell it at me at the draft party.
Yep, they sure will.
I hated it so much.
I love that.
All right.
Now I know how to bother you if I need to. Great. Thank you, Chase.
From DPhil9, if it comes to Hagens or Desnoyers at 6, who you got?
I have Hagens above Desnoyers on my board, so I would go Hagens. I think that if the Flyers were presented with that option, they go Desnoyers all day.
I think I have to go Hagens just because, like, I don't know. What if he is actually the best player in this draft? Like, that's not off the table in my mind as a plausible outcome. Yeah, he was supposed to be a year ago. Now, listen, we also ran into that with Nolan Patrick. Like, oh, he's the consensus number 1. We're getting him at 2. Boom, problem solved. And didn't work out that way for a number of reasons. But I think I have to go Hagens there. But I also might have a subconscious bias against Desnoyers just because.
Because you're annoyed that his brother isn't as good as you hoped he was going to be?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, like, unfair, totally unfair and unfounded. But, you know, life isn't fair. All right. From Nathan, PHLY boxing match, please. That would.
Why? Why do you want to see us punch each other in the face? That makes no sense.
Trying to think, like, who would the matchups be? Freaking, I know Gargano's up there in age. He is so strong.
Yeah.
Like, he's a very touchy-feely guy, and when he comes up behind you, like, Bill, what's going on? I'm like, oh my God.
The grip strength
You have
real.
the grip strength of a gorilla.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, what would the matchups have to be? Zach Berman, I think, would be underrated because he's got the leverage. Come up with the uppercuts.
He's small, but he's fierce.
Feisty, yeah. But let's see. I'll pitch it and see if we can have on the Streamathon day of PHLY boxing matches. That's probably a workplace violation there.
I would say many.
All right,
many
from our pal Purple Crayon. What up, Perp? If Bill had $1 for every one of his hats, how many new hats would Bill buy?
I feel like this is too much math for Bill.
Yeah. Yeah.
He has to add them all up.
2.
Then he's got to do more math to see how much he can afford. Yes. Bill doesn't math, okay?
No. And then I got to factor in how much like loyalty cash at Hat Club do I have? And I never know the answer to that till I get to check out.
This is a lot of work.
Yeah. Let's say 2. From Linden49, Carmichael down. What is this a reference to?
I have no clue.
All right. I don't know either.
It might be something that popped up in the comments because when we look at Super Chats, we are only seeing Super Chats. Yeah. I was hoping it was a wrestling thing.
I don't think so.
The only thing I could think of was Harold Carmichael, but like, I don't know.
I don't know how that would come up.
Whatever.
Right. Sorry, Lyndon. And from Joe Rockhead, let's do 2-hour Flyer show on June 18th with Charlie, Bill Kelly, and Steve all at the table together.
Isn't June 18th the all-day show?
That is the Streamathon
So
day.
we're going to be jumping around.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot going on that day. 4 people, we did do the show forever with 4 people.
That is true.
And it is tough to get it all in an hour. I mean, as you see, like, we go overtime every single day with 2 people. So, and when Kelly's here as well. But yeah, 4, it's way easier to do an hour and a half just because everyone wants their airtime. It will be a really fun day on June 18th. I can promise you that. Just as it will be a really fun day on Friday, June 27th at the draft party. Come on out to Chickies and Pete's in South Philly. Gonna be an awesome time. Gonna have so much fun. As it says there, special guest Bernie Parent. The VIP tickets get you not only the 3-hour open bar with food as well, but a meet and greet with Bernie himself. $5 general admission. All the general admission proceeds are going to the Snyder Hockey Foundation. It is not so we can just take $5 from you. It is a capacity issue. We need some way to know how many people are coming and to limit, going way over like we did last year. There are still fire marshals in Philly and things of that nature. It's going to be fun. So just go to allphly.com, whether you want the GA tickets or you want the VIP. Check it out. Get them while they last. This is not going to be, if I'm free Friday, maybe I'll go. That's not going to happen. We are going to be sold out by them. So make sure you get your tickets. And that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, you got to hit that subscribe button. Follow us right here on YouTube and set that reminder bell so you get notifications whenever we go live. We'll be back tomorrow at noon. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers and follow the podcast wherever you get those. All right, that's it. My name is Bill Matz. That is Charlie O'Connor. Until tomorrow, let's go Flyers.
We all silly like the mayor.